It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hey everyone, it's Experience the Buzz. I'm your host, Steve Buzzard. So glad to be back with you. Yes, the summer is rolling right along and we are super pumped. Yes, I know it's been a while. And so, that's why I'm super excited because today we have a guest that we are bringing your way is Genelle Smith. She is the executive director of the Wellspring Wellness Center for Women and Children. It's right here in Sacramento. It's an amazing program and we're going to talk about it right here on the show. But before we do that, we have a huge announcement. It involves my producer, Michael Kenobi, the man who also, like me, wears a lot of hats. I don't want to give anything away. So Michael, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely layup, Steve. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mike Kenobi. I'm the producer of the Experience the Buzz podcast, as well as another little show that we do called Heavy Metal Thunder First Look. For those of you who have joined us over on the YouTube side of things, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, never a better time than the present to get subscribed. But as Steve mentioned, in addition to my obligations and commitments to the podcast and Heavy Metal Thunder First Look, I have a couple of other jobs, couple of other career paths. So my passion points growing up were film and video, which I've gotten to do right up to this date professionally for about 10 years now. Outside of that, tech was always another big part of my life, helping people kind of troubleshoot their technical issues. So when I'm not here doing the shows, my other full-time job is working for Apple. So again, that kind of scratches that itch. And then another passion point of mine, something that I've been making money at since I was literally in junior high school, was food, right? So I remember in junior high, I used to take hamburgers to school and I would sell them. And it became a lucrative enough business to where the school took notice and then I got in trouble. So that's how well that went. But since that point, again, food has always been a passion point of mine. I love being able to provide that for folks, whether it be friends, family, everybody in between, right? And so over the last year specifically, my father-in-law and I have been kind of toying with this idea of starting a food business of some kind, right? So one of my more recent passion points has been barbecue, especially. So anything that can be cooked outside, that's what I like to do. I love cooking outside. It's a ton of fun. It's incredibly challenging, and there's so much art that goes into it. Not to compare myself to anybody else who would be a legitimate artist in the realm, but so in this idea phase, we have finally gone from that to realizing it as a business, and with that, we've started our own business, and it's called Mikey Mo's. I have it there on my shirt. So Mikey Mo's is a barbecue business. We do little pop-up events here and there. Our main bread and butter, or what we really like to do, is catered events, things like that. So if you have a party coming up, if you have a business, if you have a need for some good barbecue here in Sacramento, we're the ones who want to be able to provide that for you, right? So here in the coming weeks, we are working on creating different social media pages so we can be contacted. Eventually a website, I would venture to guess, with different contact information. And we'll keep those details coming. Another exciting announcement that comes along with that is officially being recognized as one of the sponsors of the Experience the Buzz podcast. And who knows, right? There are a couple other nifty sponsors who maybe we could do some additional business with, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like I've talked long enough. Again, more details to come on Mikey Mo's barbecue and catering. With all that being said, sit back, relax. As we've mentioned in previous episodes, we like to keep these conversations going. So we always appreciate feedback for these shows, good, back, indifferent, right? Again, we like to build off what it is that, we've been working on over a year now together. And Steve even longer than that. So if you want to keep the conversation going, again, it's something that we're very, very excited by. You can hashtag us on social medias with the hashtag Experience the Buzz Podcast. Without any further ado, enjoy this week's Talking Story.
hello everyone. My name is Steve Buzzard and this is Experience the Buzz. It is so good to be back. It's been a while since we've done a podcast and I am so happy to bring in our guest. She is the executive director of the Wellspring Women's Center. It's Genelle Smith. Genelle, welcome to the program. It's good to have you on board.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. And we should, I always like to start with what's our connection. So I'll let you describe our connection, why we know each other.
Well, we know each other because you've supported us at a couple of Taste of Hope fundraisers as an auctioneer. So we've been and last time as an MC as well. So we've really been gifted with your skills and support at our fundraisers.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I remember after our last one that we just had this past year, I said, I've got to get out there and see this place, right? It's like as an auctioneer, when you get out, it's like you need to know what it is that you are truly supporting. I feel the energy in the room. There's no doubt about that. But what you do is truly amazing. The fact that you are the executive director of this incredible establishment, I don't know, I feel like not enough people know what it's about or what it is. And so I wanted to bring you on to really describe what it is that you offer this fine community. And the community you guys have really built. You've done a great job. And then we'll dive more into your story and how you got into this position. But describe for the audience what the Wellspring Women's Center is all about.
So Wellspring Women's Center was founded in 1987, and historically it was founded by two sisters of social service who were also social workers. And the story of the founding is really beautiful because they were walking downtown and they encountered an individual that asked them for a meal. They took the individual to like a little fast food restaurant and served them a meal. And in the conversation realized that it was a woman. They weren't quite sure at first because they were quite covered, and then realized that more than the meal, the individual needed the connection, the opportunity to be seen, to be valued, and a little dream started in their heart that they really wanted to do something for women who were in poverty and who were struggling. And it was like, all dreams. They went back to work the next day. And so 3 years later, Sister Catherine called Sister Claire and said, we just have to do something or we never will. So they did. They rented a little storefront on Broadway, opened Wellspring Women's Center with no business plan, no money, no nonprofit status. They had a Mr. Coffee Maker and a box of donuts, and they welcomed the women in. And the women came, and they came for the love and the connection and the support. And so I always say that it's a very radical thing to do, that they started the organization and the women came before all the other foundation pieces. And so I think, and I hope that that's still the case, that the women and the children we serve do come first before everything else. And we've grown so much in the past 35 years. But the mission is the same, right? That mission of connection, hospitality, dignity, love, respite. So that's the foundation. We've grown from that small little storefront to a building that's the historic firehouse in Oak Park, Old Engine number 6. We own this building. It's amazing and beautiful and has a historical presence, the building itself, that's so profound when you really take it in, what's happened in this space historically. So I feel like, for us, that founding place, we're still there. We still exist with those same principles, that same mission, welcoming the women in, bigger space, much more nutritious meal than donuts and coffee, though coffee is still key, and we do still serve a lot of bread, but we have, much more nutritious meal and a whole host of other services as well.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right? And donuts and coffee is a great place to start. And so it's cool. It must be fun just saying that part and telling that part of the story, because now you realize, having been there since 2009, you're a part of it and you're a big part of it. And so being able to kind of draw back on that history to see where you are now. And you mentioned, as you got going, it started with one person, right? And it's grown. And now you're serving over 200 women and children that come through on a daily basis. And I want you to speak to that, because how it works, I know it's a Monday through Friday deal. What does it look like on a daily basis when you go into work?
On a daily basis, Wellspring is whatever walks through our door in the community. And remember, we're inviting the women and children to come in Monday through Friday, drop in the morning. And that means anybody who identifies as a woman or a child can walk through the door and receive services, no questions asked. So that means our days look different every day, depending on who comes in and what their needs are and how to support them. We have some established community members that really count on Wellspring for the support that we provide in the community space and the connection that allows them to have some sort of maybe healing or cure for isolation or loneliness. We have a breakfast that's served, right? So that's happening. Food is being served. We're having other safety net services. So there's some drop-in services that you can count on. But every day is a little bit different. Every day has a different feel. There are days that are very hard and the community is really struggling and there's a lot of grief. There's days that are joyous where we're playing karaoke or doing some other sort of fun activity. I'm a big believer in fun. I think fun is where wellness exists. And life without fun is not really very vital, right? There's not a lot of vitality to it. So we have a lot of fun here, do a lot of fun activities. But the sorrow and the suffering is also walking through the door.
Sure.
And that's so both are happening simultaneously, and every day is a bit different.
Okay, so I'm trying to get a visual in my head because you say over 200 pass through the doors. Totally makes sense that it's going to be completely different because you don't have the reliability that those 200 people are the same people coming in each and every day. So maybe it's a breakdown of what the percentage is, right? Because once a woman or their children find this place, I would imagine they want to come back, right? Because now they're going to be a part of the community. There might be some healing that is going on and they can feel safe, a safe place. And so what are the percentages of people that are coming back, kind of on a daily basis, as opposed to like new people that just walk through the door?
I love that you asked the question. And because we're a no questions asked, no paperwork to fill out, this is a very hard thing, hard to answer the data questions. We do a survey every couple of years where we try to survey over the course of the last 2 weeks of October. We survey all of our guests to try to get an understanding of who we're serving, how long they've been coming. And that's some fascinating information, right? We learned that, a large portion of our community is highly impoverished, which we would have guessed, but that 80% are actually making less than $9,000 a year in their households. So that's deep poverty. We begin to understand that, a full third have been unhomed in the past 2 years. And that includes children, right? That's not just adults. We understand that they're struggling with mental health and addiction issues at a higher rate than the regular population. We understand that they have, traumatic histories, including violence and abuse. Sure. So all of this is kind of part of the survey information we get. Then we hear we have new people every day, and we have some people who there was a woman who came in today and said, "I haven't been here in 20 years." Oh. She had last been here 2003. And so she was looking around. I'm like, wow, things have really changed. And then she looked at a volunteer who happens to be the longest volunteer we have. She's been here all 36 years, wow. This month, and says, "Oh, but I recognize you," to the volunteer. So that was really beautiful, right? That we have these volunteers that maintain the presence in community even more than staff.
So it's truly you never know, right? On a daily basis, which it seems like the way you're speaking, like you like that. That's kind of a great thing where you can really go in and say that I'm really ready to serve. And we're going to talk about being a social worker and what that means to you because you embrace it in such a great way. I was reading like a blog story that was done on you. I saw you actually on another podcast, got some great information. I know you personally from the standpoint that we've worked together, but just seeing that you really exude this idea of wanting to help other people. So that's going to be fun to be going into just not knowing exactly what you're going to expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the point of community, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
know, then you're not in community. You're in
Good
some sort
point.
of isolated or structured piece because the community is unpredictable. And so there's a certain element of surrender that you have to embrace, right? You have to be able to show up with complete acceptance of what is, to let go of your schedule and just be like, well, this is what's taking priority, which works really well for me because I've always been able to prioritize people over tasks. So
That's
I'm
great.
good. I'm good at procrastinating all the tasks
That
that
is a great gift, Genelle. Great gift.
well, it's I love that you call it a gift because for me it just feels like, my nature. And I've always loved people. And for me, then the nature of people is unpredictable. There is suffering, there's joy. The human experience contains everything. So I really just dig showing up and going, wow, like what kind of stories am I going to hear today?
Right.
And how am I going to, how is my heart going to be broken open in all the different ways it is every day here at the center. And sometimes it's a child and something they do that just cracks me up, or a baby. Babies, you can't hold a baby and not just go, wow, life, man. This little thing in my arms is going to have a whole life here on the planet. And I get to be this little tiny part of it right here in this moment, right? So,
Can
yeah,
you?
I really, I love it.
Well, I'm curious about this. Do you have this same feeling? Because I remember, I've always said with 26 years of teaching, what I really enjoyed about teaching was being able to have kind of this view, right? You have this view of kids and their families and everything. And all it does is it helps you become a better husband, for me, a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better person, a human being. Do you get that same kind of thing where it gives you this perspective that kind of helps you look at your life like, okay, like, yes, this is your job, but you love what you do. So that kind of like transforms into how you live on a daily basis.
I would say that my profession as a social worker is definitely a vocation. It's a
Hmm.
calling. It's something much deeper and has enriched my life and given me so much. I can't even imagine who I would be right now without all of the various encounters I've had in my career, whether it's been here or other places. But I've been transformed, and I hopefully, I always say, like I've been changed for good. And I mean the good of humanity, the greater good, right? Um, the goodness that has grown in me as a result of the sharing of other people's experiences and lives, right? I think that's what you're talking about, right? So that then
Yes.
I feel it in the presence of everybody. And I've also had to do the deep searching, the deep work that comes with contemplative practice of, what the heck is this all about anyway? And, how do I find hope in, very challenging circumstances? And that kind of work transforms you. Um, and
Love that.
hopefully
I
for
love
good.
that. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So I want to get a perspective
Hmm.
from someone who is going to be maybe walking through the doors
Hmm.
of Wellspring Women's Center for the first time, because or have to know that that is probably a very scary thing for a lot of people to be able to take that step, okay, to go through the doors and be able to ask for help and then accept help, right? And it depends on their situation, but going through the doors is the probably the hardest move for everyone to make. How have you been able to get like maybe feedback on that and within conversations that you've had with people that come through? We've mentioned 200 come on a daily basis, but still you're going to have those stories of people walking through for the very first time.
So it's going to feel very much like a cafe, right? When you walk in, because there's no desk or paperwork or anything. It's like you walk in, and part of the intentionality of the center is that hopefully we are surrounded with beauty. We have guest artwork around the center. We have flowers on every table. It should not feel like a place of despair or neediness. It should feel like a place of respite and uplift and joy. And that's very intentional. So when somebody walks in, often the first thing that they say when they talk about their impression was just how immediately they felt welcomed just by the environment, because welcome is more than just the people. It's how the space is maintained. Is it clean? Those types of things. And it's not to be disparaging of other social services, but they can be very depressing in where they're located, the lighting, the whole experience, right? And that matters when it comes to how we connect as human beings. We have round tables purposefully, meaning connection and equality.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody walking in would just be greeted with all of this. They would see the food being served. They would be welcomed. There's usually a greeting volunteer who just welcomes, says good morning, opens the door. And that's that first place of connection, right? That there's an open door, or you're welcome here, come in. And for many people, they talk about that as feeling seen, right? And having an experience of acceptance. So to me, I feel like that's hopefully the first way that people experience our beautiful space is with warmth and a witnessing and being seen. And then everything else is just like they explore and learn, and people talk, and it's a community. They might see a table with some crochet lessons happening, or they might walk into karaoke. Who knows? But it depends on the day.
These are the things. These are the outlets that then allow them to open up and share their hearts, right? Share their hearts and maybe some things that they need to get off their chest that you guys are right there for them for, which is awesome, because that's what I was wondering is like, how does it go from, stepping into the door to then taking it to that next level? And it looks like it just happens organically, right? That's not going to be the case for everybody, but that's what you're hoping to accomplish by really, like, as you just described, having this beautiful scene of, just flowers, circular tables, all of the things that are very small, but make a huge difference.
Yes, and I feel like what you said is the organic nature of connection. If the stage is set appropriately for that, it happens, and people find a way to belong in the way that works for them. So some individuals who are highly disordered, we have a woman who was here this morning. She's hallucinating. She's struggling with her mental health. She's unhomed. She just kind of walks back and forth and sings under her breath. She sings hymns. And she can find belonging here. There's a place for her to do that. There's people who will even acknowledge and thank her for the gift of her voice. And yet, where else would she find that, right? Most people are going to kind of rebuke that or be ostracized it a bit because it's unknown or unfamiliar. It's not within the social limits, right, of what we would normally call our normal. And so that finds a place of belonging. Someone who's just, coming in and getting a meal and sitting down at a table, and they met their friend here. The women who speak Spanish call it cafecito, and it just means the little cafe, right? So they meet their friends and talk, and that is also a place of belonging and support. The kids who have play and look forward to seeing their friends. Sometimes it's the kids that get the moms here because they want to come play. They want to come be at Wellspring. So they're like, let's go to Wellspring. It's kind of like a place for them as well. So belonging becomes a key piece, but it happens organically, right? It's not something we're forcing. There's no particular way you have to show up. Some people, they are so disordered, they struggle in community, so they'll find a place on our outdoor patio kind of far away. They sort of, remove themselves a bit because they know they can't handle the stimulus, and yet they still have a place of support and connection. So all of that can happen just by virtue of allowing it to happen and not trying to make it happen. So organic is a good word.
Genelle, this is where you meet people where they are. And that is such an important piece, and just doing great work. Let's do a reset. It's Genelle Smith. She is the executive director of Wellspring Women's Center. It's in Sacramento. It's available to any woman or children that can come through the doors. And you can say you're not signing up for anything. If you just need a place to go, this is the place to go. And so with that, obviously, in addition to what you do, you have to have an amazing staff. So you mentioned someone who has been there all 36 years. Let's give them a shout out. And then tell me about your volunteers and the people and your staff. How big is your staff?
So it's interesting. The person who's been here all 36 years is actually a volunteer. So yes, right. Our volunteers are incredible. We have over 100 volunteers that we rely upon, and we do everything we do because people care about other people and show up. And to me, that's where, if you want to talk about remarkable, yeah, so serving food, teaching someone to sew, playing with the children, helping us give out safety net items, tallying up data. I mean, goodness gracious, the volunteers make it happen. I used to say we couldn't open one day without volunteers, and then the pandemic happened, and I realized we could, barely. Barely. It was not easy. It was myself and one other person. We never closed a single day, but it was a lot of work to serve and provide the essential care to the community without our volunteers. So I can tell you that the volunteers here are essential and matter, and boy, are we lucky to have long-standing, committed support.
Well, and a thing you did mention is that the pandemic, of getting through that was a big accomplishment for you and for Wellspring, because it wasn't easy for anybody. But like you said, you lost your whole volunteer staff, but yet you were still able to sustain yourself, get through it. And I would imagine, as we speak today, are probably much stronger because of it.
Right. That's the whole thing, right? The Chinese symbol for crisis includes opportunity. And that's sometimes an important thing to understand, how we grow through challenges. And I think organizationally and personally, we all have different experiences of this related to the pandemic. Organizationally, I think we realize that we can still serve in any circumstance, right? Like the world shut down on Friday and we opened Monday, right? To serve people who had nowhere to shelter. They had no home. Some of them didn't even know what was happening. It was very confusing time. And so we kept serving and we kept doing it. And it was just myself and one other staff person. And we had some behind the scenes folks of our staff. And we just kind of were trying to protect everybody, but still had no clue what was going on at that time. It's kind of interesting to think back at what a strange experience that was.
Yeah.
And just, we just had conversations with people and connected and just tried to offer support however we could. And then realized, though, that the nature of community is such that even just a touchstone can be helpful, even just a moment to just connect, and just somebody who knows your name, somebody who, can offer you water, because at that time there was no water available anywhere. They'd shut down the water in the parks. All the restaurants were closed and people were coming for miles just to get water. And so it was something to experience that. And what we were is like that touchstone, and how we understood the vital nature of community and connection from that. That was like the strength, right? It was like, we're in, wow, like this is more important than ever, and it will always be important through all circumstances. How it is that our resiliency is enhanced by the fact that we can see somebody and feel cared about. Yeah, but we have a small staff anyway, Steve. We do. There's just 7 of us, and somehow we all kind of do a separate thing, and we call ourselves GWOW, the Glorious Women of Wellspring. And
GWOW, I love it.
Yeah, and I feel like we that's our team is strong, and we work really hard to encourage in each other the trust in the universe. And the process that each of us goes through in terms of our day-to-day capacities and functions within the organization, right? It looks different all the time. So
Genelle, I'm curious, because how do you get the word out? How does that work, the marketing? Like your website, by the way, I do want to applaud you. The website is dynamite. It's so well done. So good job on that. But I am curious, like, how do you get the word out so people know that this place, first of all, exists, and then for people who need to use it, how does that work?
So This is funny, right? Because I don't know that we spend a lot of time thinking about this. I think we just keep doing the work and hoping that the message gets to the right people, meaning that word of mouth is our strongest referral.
Okay.
And so people tell other people. We do have, of course, all of the presences in the virtual world. We, attend some health fairs or things like that on occasion. We're part of the regular resource referrals for Sacramento County and 211 and on the street sheet, things like that. So there's places people can find us. But I don't think we don't spend a lot of time outreaching because people come. So there's not
Yeah.
there. It seems like our efforts in terms of just providing good quality care and ensuring that component means that other people are referred all the time by people who've used our care and services, right? So they are our best resource for referrals.
Okay. And you know what? The energy is going towards where it matters, right? And that's the work that you're doing. So, and
Mm-hmm.
they always say the best form of advertising is word of mouth, and you've got that.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious, and I think it was done a little bit in the blog. The countless stories that you have seen, you have heard, you have endured, is there any way that you guys are able to communicate that, or do you want to protect privacy of people? Obviously, they would have to give consent, but I can only imagine that in your work that you've done at Wellspring, I mean, you could write a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always think about these stories that live in my heart.
Hmm.
And as a nonprofit, it can be very seductive to share the stories in a profiting way, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, here's this story, and this is why you should give us money or invest in us in some way. And that makes me very uncomfortable. So I'm
Okay.
careful, right? I'm careful with it
Uh-huh.
because I never want to feel like I'm using somebody. That's it's a challenging place to exist. And
Sure.
especially the hardest times of somebody's life. I mean, imagine, Steve, the hardest times you've ever been in your life and the things that have helped you through that and when you needed help. And if somebody was, sharing that in a way that was like, this is why you should give to us because we're so great. And I think, no, no, Steve, you're so great because you got through it. We were lucky to be a part of your journey. And that was a really special opportunity. But I don't think we deserve any of the credit, right? We were part of the
Yeah.
journey, but you're the one who made it through. And
Oh,
not everybody
wow.
does, right? So.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective and a proper perspective. And I think that's the way it should remain, right? And so
Mhm.
that, because I got to thinking too, like I've heard you mention shoestring budget, right? Like you
Mhm.
guys don't operate on much. And we do the annual fundraiser,
Mhm.
and we do pretty well in that. It's nothing like,
Yes.
out of the moon or something, but it's enough to keep the place running. Talk to me about that, because in my mind, I feel like there would be a corporation or big business or even a load of small businesses that would say, Janelle, we would love to give to you. And that was, I don't want to say the main reason I wanted to have you on, but one of the reasons is because I do want to spotlight the work that you're doing. And I recognize that you have a very humble nature about you. I am curious about that, though. Where does that lie in terms of people that support you?
So here's the thing, Steve, you reached out to me, right? You
Mhm.
wanted to support. That's what I find people do. It's like, it's amazing how people find connection here. And so I'm not having to do a lot of selling our mission. People like find us and go, I want to support you and learn more about what you do. And we say, yes, we'd love that. Learn more about us. We'd be happy to just, to give you a tour or share more. So I think it's really interesting, right? That somehow just by doing the work and doing the best job that we can and engaging with whoever wants to be engaged with us, right? I'm not going after anybody. I'm just, when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to help, I'm saying, great. Let's do that. I would love it. How can you help? And it can be anything. We have people who, I'm going to do a spaghetti dinner for you at my house and I'm going to make my friends pay. Cool. That's great. I mean, just the amazing creativity and ingenuity of people who want to give. And people are generous, Steve. They're so generous. if you ever doubt human generosity, just come spend a day here at Wellspring, because everything happens here because people want to help and give, whether that's they swing by with a can of coffee, or they're giving their time, or they're organizing a donation drive at their office. I mean, people want to help other people. And there's such beauty in that, our efforts, right? And I almost feel like it's a place of valor, right? There's such a valor in that generosity. The true kind of heroes and heroines, right? So for me, when you ask that question, I'm always like, well, people give, and we just say, yes, thank you. And we are so grateful and trust, and we trust a lot the energy that exists, that if we're doing good work, then the support will be there. It'll be there, and it always has. So it's sort of maybe an act of faith or a process of that nature, but I really feel like it has never let us down, and we just keep doing the good work, and the people that want to support that keep showing up.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's a perfect way to end this first segment. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to kind of get the story of Genelle, right? She's been doing this since 2009, but here's what you need to know. She left a state job to come to wellness. The executive director happened down the line 2017, but this has been her life for well over 25 years, and she's done such a remarkable job. From when the two sisters that we talked about that gave those donuts and coffee spoke to that woman for the first time, the tradition carries on. So don't go anywhere. This is Experience the Buzz. We'll be back right after this. All right, hope you enjoyed that first segment there with our guest, Genelle Smith. And it's time to thank our sponsors. We are thanking the original two. That's right, Pit Boss Jerky and R5 Stitch and Print. Troy Rousey is the owner of R5 Stitch and Print. Just got some work done. We had a big meeting today, me, him, his graphic designer, Grace. I'm telling you, they do outstanding work. And boy, this guy's getting busy. Why? Because he's good. So r5print.com, check them out. They're local, and they will get the job done for you, whether it's for your business, personal needs, you name it, they can do it. Okay, so Troy Rousey, who's best represented in episode number 25. Yes, we tell his story. It is very cool. Also want to thank Joe Green of Pit Boss Jerky. He is represented in episode number 26, 11 amazing flavors. He's local, he's the pit boss, and we got a flavor named right after the show. It is now called Buzz Experience, and I can also tell you that I love raspberry, apple, chipotle, island teriyaki. Those are the big three that a lot of people love. And then you got the original 6, which is pepper garlic, pit boss original, sweet summer, honey gold, sweet and smoky, and little heat. Let's just say it's safe to say that Joe Green is a mad scientist when it comes to beef jerky. It is delightful. And if you want to get some of your hands on it, you can call 916-769-6807. So let's go ahead and get back to our episode with our guest today. Is Genelle Smith, Executive Director of Wellspring Wellness Center for Women and Children. Let's go.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back. We are with Genelle Smith. She is the Executive Director of Wellspring Wellness Center. It is for women and children. It's right here in Sacramento. We had a great first segment really talking about the center itself. And now we're going to talk about Genelle, right? Like, how did she get to this? You can hopefully get the vibes that I'm getting through that first segment. Love, humility, the fact that she is a social worker. There's a lot to be said for that. And it has shaped her life. And obviously she loves what she does. I am curious, and we'll take it back to 2009 when you really made that transition. You were working for the state, and then something happened where there was an opportunity to live for or work for wellness, just kind of starting in. Take me through that story a little bit, like when you made that big decision, because I'm sure that was a big moment in your life.
Well, I've worked as a social worker in Sacramento since 95. So I've had several, main jobs. In 2009, I found myself in a state job, and it was definitely valuable work. That's not to say anything against the work. I was supporting caregivers for, individuals that had really extensive brain traumas. And it was important and valuable work I was doing, but it was very isolated work. It was come to an office appointment work. And I'd always supported Wellspring. I was a donor here. So I had known about Wellspring and loved their model because I had a individual who was affected by brain trauma, had affective aphasia, who went missing, and she was found here. And somebody took the time here at this center to try to get through her communication challenges and really understand who she was, and then called me. Somehow spent enough time to find their way to me. And that's how I really learned about Wellspring. And I was like, this place is amazing. I knew this individual's communication challenges. It took a lot of patience and witnessing to be present and get the story. So I knew this was a special place. So I heard from, you know how God, I'll say God works. And
it's God. It's God.
Yeah. And I had a mentor at the time who heard that there was a position open here at Wellspring. And I immediately was like, oh, I would love that work, being in community, being in that space. And I interviewed with the executive director, Sister Judy, at the time in her home. So can you just imagine that interview, right? I was immediately like, wow, this is so different. And I've never think I've even been in another boss's home, let alone, starting out with such welcome and warmth and connection. And so I had to make the change, even though in 2009, I'm sure you imagine there was a housing crisis and
something was going on
some
during
kind
that
of
time.
major issue regarding our economy. And so I decided to take a huge pay cut and follow my heart to a place that was doing the amazing work that Wellspring is doing and has been doing all these years. And so that's kind of how I got here, right? Was just through this divine appointment of connection and just a deep feeling of this was the place for me to be. And walking in and being present here and working here as a social worker, I just couldn't believe I paid for it. I was like, this is so awesome. And I still feel that way. And the beauty of just being able to do work that feels so like a part of me. And yeah, that's a real gift in my life. So that's kind of how it happened. And then of course, when Sister Judy left in 2017, I became the executive director.
Well, that must have been exciting, just like that, knowing that you were in a place that you definitely wanted to be, you loved what you were doing, and then to be able to have what would be, I guess, the top position. What was that like?
Oh, I didn't want it.
You didn't want it. Okay.
I wanted Sister Judy to stay and be the executive director, and I wanted to keep being a social worker.
I gotcha.
And it was, but it was really my love of this organization that where I said, okay, if I'm asked to lead, I will do so. Not because I was excited to do it necessarily, but because my value base for the organization, what I was being called to do at the time, it was an easy yes for that reason, but a hard yes in that I was losing my identity as the social worker here. I really just want to spend my time with the people. I understand as an executive director, I'm sure you understand, there's a lot of stuff that is not social work, but kind of is, but budgets and all those things. And so I wasn't really thrilled to be doing those things, but I've also stretched, right? I've been asked to stretch myself, and I have, and I'm so happy that I have. And I just am so blessed to be able to hold the mission and the legacy, have such a strong legacy to hold, and the stability of that holds my leadership. And I kind of think of myself more as like a servant leader, right? Where I jokingly say, like, the messiest cleanup in the building, whatever that is, throw up, urine, clogged toilet, come get me. I want to do those things because that's that work is just as important as any other work, and sometimes more important. And so whatever it is, I really want to be part of this organization on every level. And I don't necessarily see the leadership tasks as most important. Um, it's all important, every
Right,
bit.
because you still had to be the essence of who you are, and that is a social worker, right? Like that being with the people is your main thing. So I am
Yes.
curious from 2017 to where we are now, what are some of the things that you were or have been able to implement that has maybe taken Wellspring to, a different level or has enhanced the experience? I'm sure you had some great ideas without messing with the legacy, I guess is the best way to put it.
That's right. Staying mission focused.
Hmm.
I think that's where growth happens, right? Is from your mission and with your mission. And sometimes nonprofits can get in a trap where they're following the money instead of the mission, and so their mission will kind of stretch, and then before you know it, it's kind of morphed into something totally different. So for me, it's been always been about like how do we grow our mission, and then again the funding will come from that. So the mission has grown through an amazing arts therapy program that offers an intensive art therapy and art expressive experience for the women. Our mission has grown in our nutritious meal program and how amazing that program has become with the quality nutritious meals we serve, including a whole renovation of our kitchen. It has grown in our outdoor patio seating space and the beautiful murals, both a clay and a paint mural that adorn our beautiful building. Um, it's grown in how we respond and work with the children to include developmental assessments and other things very early so that we can help them get the support they need to reach their potential. It's grown in the way that we show up outside these walls for the community, providing testimony and support for policies that will hopefully create better circumstances for them. It's also just grown in our donor base, the volunteers, but the mission itself is still the mission. So even though those things have changed and we continue to grow the mission, it's still the mission. It's still that offering respite, honoring the innate goodness of women and children, that hospitality piece, dignity and love, and dignity being so key to all of that. A dignified experience, which I don't know, I think we're losing that more and more maybe in our
Yeah.
culture, right?
Yeah, but it's somewhere in what's happening at Wellspring is it is there. It is happening. So it is good to see that even though, yeah, as a big picture idea that we are losing sense of ourselves, I would say that there are still places like Wellspring where the good is happening. The good is happening. It's not to say bad. The world is bad. The world's got its things, but it's just this is such a great example. And so, and why I was excited to have you on, because I knew just as kind of an outsider, just based on our conversations and being able to work the event, I don't know, in the second year, this past year, it really piqued my interest. I think the first year I was coming in, like, I was kind of nervous and stuff because, I'd been auctioneering a few years and stuff, and I wasn't sure and didn't quite know everything. And I tried to do my homework and everything. But there was something that just really hit me this past year. And I can't really describe what it is because we talked about God intervening. I really felt like God was intervening. Like, man, this is such an honor to be able to do what I do for an organization like yours. And so the fact that you just described what you have, I think, is so honoring to the people that come through your doors, the volunteers who are there to serve, and then obviously you doing what you're doing. So my question then is, how did you get to this? Like, Genelle, like what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up and everything? Brothers, sisters? I'm just curious of where this piece came into your life that really has been the center of who you are. Who do you give credit to?
Boy, such a challenging question. I always answer it different too. Have you ever had this happen where you're like, huh, in that moment you reflect on a little different piece to your
Sure.
story?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I feel like the one thing I would say though is I probably would have to give credit to Creator because somehow I was born with this desire to help. I had a lot of
Hmm.
mercy very early on I remember early in my experiences in preschool having a lot of empathy for other children, being worried about them, being concerned about their well-being. I didn't want anybody to be upset or to cry. Even when kids got in trouble, I didn't want them to get in trouble. I wanted there to be forgiveness and sort of an opportunity for atonement. I didn't like it when people were put on timeout, like that felt like a rejection or some kind. So very early on, I just had all this going on inside of me, and I was a philosopher at heart. Like I would have these deep conversations about what is the meaning of life and death, and why do things die, and anybody that was in my world was going to have a conversation like this with me, including my friends. So I guess I was the social worker to my friends first, and we would have like little support groups and things on the monkey bars. And to feel better, we'd hang upside down, which was always good. It still works today, actually, get a little blood flowing. But the reality is that was always who I was. And my family, we struggled. We were very impoverished. We were homeless ourselves at times. I had parents that struggled with addiction and other challenges, and I deeply wanted help for them, right? And they were so supportive of me. I always knew I was loved, that I mattered, that they valued me and my life and believed in me. So I was so blessed with such loving parents who really struggled themselves. And so I think all of that shaped me, right? And I was like, what can I do in this world to support, to just be present to the experience of others in a way that is deeply healing? I was looking for healing. I'm still looking for healing, I think, collectively and individually. I think that happens through love and through connection. I think, I always like the question of, instead of what's wrong with somebody, what's happened to them,
Sure.
right?
Yep, it's
You know,
true.
uh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of shaped my experience. And so then I've also though been a schoolgirl, the nerd. I was the nerdiest nerd of all. I just loved to do my homework. Like that made me so happy. I'd go home and be like, oh, my homework. And so those combinations of like this part of me that just really wanted to help, and then this part of me that loved learning and just really wanted to keep learning. I knew in my life that, learning was a part of that, education was a part of that. And so, I went on and kind of found my way through different pathways in junior college and on to Sac State, where I graduated with both my BSW and my MSW, so both
Nice.
in social work. And now, of course, I teach there also part-time in the
Oh,
division. So
okay. Didn't
yeah,
know
so
that.
yeah. So it's an interesting kind of full circle experience, but social work, of course, just is me because it's about the values of social work. The core values are, the dignity and worth of every person, right? That's one of them. Another one is the value of human relationships. Another one is service. Another one is social justice, integrity, competence. I mean, could you align a profession with values that line up any better? So, yeah, social
Yeah,
work
that's
became.
such a great education just on that right there. Like, what
Mhm,
is social work? So
mhm.
you kind of have an idea, but the fact again that you described it that way is so good to hear. So I take it then that you grew up in Sacramento? Yes?
No, I was born actually in Stockton, and
Okay.
then spent a lot of my childhood in Clovis, New Mexico, which is where
Clovis, New Mexico.
right on the border of Texas, which was an interesting space to exist. And so I had some early formative experiences there, understanding the plains and the winds and the weather, which is so different, like the space we occupy and what we learn from nature. As
Uh-huh.
kids, I mean,
Yeah.
I know now kids don't spend as much time in nature. I guess they're supposed to, though. We're supposed to be offering them more green space because they don't get enough. They get too much screen time. But of course, you and I probably grew up outside.
Yes.
And so nature informed me a lot. And I was always very present with like the experience of cycles and just different things. And so New Mexico had its own way of being, right? Its own nature and pieces, the winds, the thunderstorms that would just rock the world. Those were things that I was present to and taking in as part of my experience. Just like here, California has its own weather patterns and processes. And of course, we have the rivers here and the beauty of the rivers and all these trees. And growing up in New Mexico, where there's very few trees, you begin to appreciate the experience of trees and shade. Wow, shade is something that is such a beautiful thing to have when the sun is beating down on you. And so, yeah, and all of those elements, I think, shaped me. Nature, the people around me, my own desire for learning, the unwavering support of my family, even through their own challenges. Yeah.
It's cool. And so I've got to finish with this. You're in Sacramento. And this is a podcast about people that we highlight that are from Sacramento. What are the things that you love about it, about this city? What resonates with you?
Well, Sacramento is home. I mean, so I came here, as a youngster. So for me, what I know now is this is my home, and it's friendly. Sacramento is a friendly town. People, people here. Like, you can't go very far without knowing somebody who knows somebody. There's a process of our culture about policy and lawmaking and governance, which is also very interesting to me and intriguing. Like, laws are made here and governance occurs, and that being part of our sort of culture. I mentioned the rivers, boy, a river city, the trees, the experience of kind of how those elements bring community together, and also how it separates it, right? Both.
Yeah.
And again, Sac State has been dear to my heart because, as a college experience there, I was able to really meet some amazing professors and faculty and staff and fellow students, and really dived into the community in a different way, in a professional way. And since then have felt very supported through all of my endeavors by people that I've met here. Their acceptance and their willingness to just say yes to things and believe in me. So yeah, that's what Sacramento means to me. I mean, it's home now, and it's a great home.
I love it. I can agree with that. I love Sacramento. And Genelle, I just want to tell you, first of all, congratulations on the work that you've done. I just want to say I'm so honored that our paths have crossed. And we've had this opportunity to, what I always tell people, go beneath the surface and really get to know more about Wellspring, but also get to know more about you. And thank you for just opening up your heart and being able to share that with us. And I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people. And it's also a reminder of what we were just talking about, what Sacramento is all about. It is full of great people. It's not to say that other cities are not full of great people. This just happens to be a podcast that spotlights the capital city of California. So thank you again for being a part of the show. And again, very, very honored to have you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So there she is. It's Genelle Smith. She is the executive director of Wellspring Wellness Center. We'll put all the information down in the show notes in case you would like to maybe, jump in and say, hey, I'd like to support them, or maybe you want to volunteer. There's obviously space for that. So there's a lot of avenues that you can go. So we're going to take a break and come back with a final word right here on ETB. Thank you for tuning in.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Man, I just love it when we get a conversation like that. That one was deep, okay? And that's what I love. And Genelle, she is incredible. You can see as a human being, wow, top notch, top shelf. And then her work and what she does, it just kind of all blends together. And I would say the big takeaway for me is, first of all, it is great to know that there are places like Wellspring that are available to people who are down and out, who are just trying to get back at it. We see a lot of it here in the capital city. And the way that it's done at Wellness is really, I think nobody matches it, right? I haven't seen or heard of anything else. So very good thing there. If there's something that's like saying, hey, I would love to support that. I know I already said that, but man, just find a way. Just reach out to Genelle and her group, and it doesn't have to just be by money. It could be the fact that you'd want to volunteer. There are opportunities to do that as well. And I look forward to being the auctioneer for their auction coming up next spring. Should be a lot of fun. And so with that said, we'll have another guest ready for you, trying to line them up for you and keep them coming to you on the weekly. So my name is Steve Buzzard. This is Experience the Buzz. That's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.